Everyone in Willow Creek thought Ella Thompson was about to marry the perfect man. Handsome, educated, heir to a billion-dollar real estate empire. What they didn't know was that Nathan Carter, fresh off a 5-year stint in Europe, had no intention of marrying for appearances. Behind the tailored suits and Harvard degree was a man deeply scarred by betrayal. He'd watched too many people chase his wealth, not his heart. So days before the engagement party, Nathan vanished. No announcements, no excuses, just a quiet move into a rusted trailer on the outskirts of town, posing as Nate, a broke part-time handyman with a busted truck and no family name. He needed to know, if you strip away the money, the power, the legacy, does love still stay? He never expected the answer would come from the woman no one in town noticed, not even his fiancée. The sun had just begun to rise over the sleepy town of Ashford Hills, Virginia, casting a golden hue over the Carter family estate, a sprawling colonial-style mansion nestled on acres of manicured land. To the outside world, it was the symbol of Southern prestige. To Nathan Carter, it was the cage he had escaped from years ago. After spending nearly a decade studying architecture and social policy in Copenhagen, Nathan stepped off the train in Richmond with little fanfare. Dressed in a weathered denim jacket and worn boots, he looked nothing like the heir to one of the wealthiest dynasties in the state. That was intentional. He hadn't told anyone except his grandmother of his return, especially not Lauren Whitmore, the woman he was supposed to marry in 6 weeks. Lauren came from the perfect pedigree, old money, elite education, and all the polished charm of a Southern belle. But Nathan had never been certain of her intentions. During their long-distance relationship, he'd sensed something was off, especially after hearing rumors of her late-night outings and a suspicious family friend named Chase. He tried to brush it off until his grandmother, Eleanor Carter, sent him a private message weeks earlier. Be careful who you trust. Not everyone smiles with good intentions. And so Nathan returned, not as himself, but as someone else. With his tousled brown hair tucked under a cap and a forged reference letter from a small landscaping firm, Nathan applied for a temporary handyman position under an alias, Nate Walker. The Carter estate's property manager, not recognizing the heir with his European accent now toned down and his appearance deliberately rugged, hired him on the spot. His plan was simple: blend in, observe quietly, and uncover the truth. He had one clear objective: find out who truly loved him and who only loved the Carter fortune. But nothing prepared him for the woman who would change everything. Eliza Monroe, a live-in caretaker for his aging aunt, who treated Nate with a kindness that felt disarmingly real. As Nathan unloaded garden supplies from the truck that morning, watching Lauren laugh on the terrace with Chase, he knew one thing for certain. If he wanted the truth, he'd have to live a lie first. By day 2, Nate Walker had become a familiar figure around the Carter estate, hauling sacks of mulch, trimming the hedges, and repairing cracked tiles on the garden path. To the staff, he was just another seasonal worker. To Nathan, it was his disguise and his shield. From his vantage point in the garden, Nathan saw everything. Lauren, his fiancée, spent her mornings in Pilates gear, sipping mimosas and snapping selfies on the veranda. By early afternoon, she was gone. Often picked up in a black SUV Nathan now recognized belonged to Chase Brigham, the man his family had described as a family friend. But Chase never looked at Lauren like a friend, and Lauren, Nathan noted, bitterly, never acted like someone engaged. One afternoon, Nathan was fixing a broken fence behind the guest house when he overheard voices. Lauren and Chase, close, intimate, laughing about fooling the old lady, his grandmother, and how the European prince wouldn't suspect a thing. Nathan's jaw clenched. The betrayal burned. But he forced himself to remain silent. He needed more than suspicions. He needed undeniable proof. That night, Nathan returned to the small cottage assigned to staff. It was modest but clean, with wood-paneled walls and a narrow bed, Waiting on the steps was Eliza Monroe, her red curls pulled into a messy bun, holding a plate of banana bread wrapped in a linen cloth. "I heard you skipped dinner," she said, offering it with a smile. "Garden work's rough the first week." Nathan blinked, taken aback. "You bake this?" Eliza shrugged. "My aunt always said food is the best way to welcome someone. Besides, you look like you could use a little kindness." For a moment the facade slipped. No one had looked at Nathan Carter like a person in years, only as a paycheck, a prospect, or a project. But Eliza? She didn't know who he was, and yet she offered him something real. That night, Nathan sat on the edge of his bed, chewing the banana bread slowly. It tasted like cinnamon and sincerity. He stared out the window at the main house glowing under chandelier light, where his fiancée toasted secrets with another man. Then his eyes drifted to the caretaker's wing, where Eliza read under a warm lamp with her feet curled beneath her. Two worlds, one filled with performance, one with the quiet truth. And for the first time, Nathan wasn't sure who he was more afraid of hurting, Lauren or Eliza. It was a humid Thursday afternoon when chaos struck. Nathan had just finished tightening the last bolt on the greenhouse door when smoke curled above the eastern orchard. Within seconds, the estate erupted in shouting. A fire, sudden and aggressive, had broken out near the tool shed dangerously close to the main power line. Without hesitation, Nathan grabbed the hose from the side wall and sprinted toward the flames. Several staff members followed, but it was Nathan who led the charge, dousing the base of the fire, barking orders with an authority no regular handyman should have had. He moved like someone trained for the crisis, because he was. By the time the fire department arrived, the flames were contained. Damage was minimal. No one was hurt, but the aftermath was colder than the smoke that lingered. Later that evening, Nathan returned to the cottage to find two sheriff deputies waiting with stern expressions. One held a clipboard, the other had a photograph of Nathan, near the shed. "Someone reported seeing you loitering in the area just before the fire started," the deputy said. Nathan's stomach dropped. This wasn't just an accusation, it was a setup. Before he could respond, Lauren appeared, her arms crossed, face stiff with concern. I'm sorry, but I did see him near the shed earlier. I thought he was just working." It was enough. The deputies asked him to come with them for questioning. As Nathan climbed into the squad car, his heart hammered. Not from fear, but fury. Lauren. She knew exactly what she was doing. Framing the help to deflect attention, or worse, covering something up. But something unexpected happened at the sheriff's office. Eliza showed up. She walked into the station holding a security flash drive she'd taken from the estate's side entrance camera. "This proves he was nowhere near the fire when it started," she said calmly. The footage showed Nathan in the greenhouse, and someone else, blurred but distinctly not him, walking near the shed minutes before smoke appeared. The case crumbled. Nathan was released. Outside, the station, he turned to Eliza. "Why would you go through all that trouble? For me?" She shrugged, but her voice cracked. "Because I don't believe in punishing good people just because they wear overalls instead of silk." Nathan looked at her, truly looked, past the freckles and worn boots, to the unwavering strength in her eyes. For the first time since returning, someone had stood up for him. Not because of who he was, but because of what was right. And in that moment, Nathan knew. Eliza Monroe was no ordinary caretaker. She might be the only person who actually saw him. The days that followed the fire were strangely calm, but tension hung over the Monroe estate like a storm cloud waiting to break. Nathan returned to his duties, quieter but sharper. He worked with purpose, keeping his head down but his ears open. And through it all, Eliza was there. She brought him lemonade on scorching afternoons, shared fresh tomatoes from the garden she tended out back. On one rainy evening, they ended up sheltering together in the stables, laughing as a goat stole Nathan's sandwich. For the first time in years, Nathan felt peace. Not because the world had changed, but because one person had. Eliza never asked him about his past, never questioned the scars on his hands or the way he instinctively scanned every room. Instead, she talked about her mother, who passed when she was young, and how the garden was their thing. She spoke about books she loved, about fairness, about how she didn't believe kindness should be earned. It should be default. One afternoon, as they were planting new tulips near the back hedge, Eliza looked at him and said softly, "You're not who you pretend to be, are you?" Nathan froze. His hand stopped mid-dig, but then she added, "I don't mean that in a bad way. Just, I've met a lot of people who act important. You're the first one who doesn't act at all, but still makes people around you feel safe." He didn't answer. He couldn't. But that night, he found himself staring at the ceiling of the cottage, wondering how Eliza saw right through the layers he'd so carefully built. Unfortunately, someone else was watching too. Lauren Monroe had noticed the quiet glances, the way Eliza's cheeks flushed when Nathan walked into a room, the laughter that slipped between them when they thought no one else heard. To Lauren, it wasn't innocence, it was a betrayal. Her engagement to Nathan was still technically intact, even if they hadn't spoken of vows in weeks. And no handyman, no matter how charming, was going to steal her spotlight. She summoned her best friend, Cassidy, and whispered venom into her ear. Together they began planning something subtle, but devastating. By the end of the week, Cassidy had arranged for a private investigator to look into Nathan's background. "Let's see who this mystery handyman really is," Lauren smirked, and, far away from their schemes, Nathan stood in the moonlit garden beside Eliza, listening to her hum a lullaby to the flowers. He didn't know it yet, but their quiet haven was about to be shattered. The Monroe estate looked the same. Pristine. Gardens, silver fountains trickling peace into the air, but underneath its beauty, something ugly had begun to grow. Cassidy had returned with a smug smile and a sealed envelope. "You're not going to believe this," she whispered, sliding it across Lauren's antique vanity. "You were right. He's not who he says he is." Lauren tore the envelope open, hands trembling with excitement. Inside were photos, records, and a full background report, one that didn't match the identity Nathan Carter claimed. According to the private investigator, there were no official records of a Nathan Carter born in Vermont in 1990. No high school, no employment history prior to 2 months ago, nothing but a trail of cash transactions and burner phone purchases. "He's a ghost," Cassidy grinned, "which means he's hiding something big." Lauren's mind raced. If she exposed him publicly and proved that Eliza had been getting too cozy with a liar, she could destroy both of them. The trap was set. Meanwhile, down in the far corner of the garden, Nathan was repairing a broken fence. Eliza stood nearby, gently untangling morning glory vines from the splintered wood. But today she was quiet, distracted. "Something's off," she murmured. "What do you mean?" Nathan asked, adjusting the wire. "I caught Lauren watching us yesterday, and Cassidy's been acting fake, like she's waiting for something." Nathan paused. The same instincts that had kept him safe during years abroad suddenly kicked in. He stood, scanning the horizon, the Monroe house now looking more like a watchtower than a home. He didn't trust coincidences. That night, he checked the cottage carefully before sleeping, testing the door lock, drawing the curtains fully shut. And when the wind brushed past the window pane, he didn't move. He waited, listening, because something told him the game had changed, and it had. The next morning, Lauren strolled into the dining room with a theatrical gasp. "Oh my God, my wallet!" she exclaimed, loud enough for the staff to hear. "It's missing! My diamond cufflinks, too!" She turned to Cassidy. "Call security. Someone must have stolen it." Cassidy's voice rang out. "Maybe that handyman? The new guy with no background?" Whispers spread like wildfire, and in the shadows, Lauren smiled sweetly. "Of course, we don't want to accuse anyone unfairly." but maybe a full search is necessary. Security swept the cottage with the cold precision of men who knew. Their orders came from money, not justice. Nathan stood still in the doorway, hands loosely by his side, his blue work shirt stained with soil and sweat. Eliza arrived just in time to hear the head of security say, "We found this under his mattress." It was Lauren's wallet. Nathan looked at the object, the crisp leather, the gold emblem, and then in the room. Cassidy stood just outside, arms crossed, lips twitching at the corners. "That's not mine," he said evenly. "Of course it's not," Cassidy scoffed. "Just like your identity." Gasps. A few staff members standing nearby exchanged glances. "I'd like to speak to Eliza." "Alone," Nathan said. His voice wasn't panicked. It was calm, like a man who had expected this move. But Lauren cut in. "I don't think that's necessary. Security can handle it. In fact, I think it's time you left the property, Mr. whatever your name is." Eliza stepped forward, brows furrowed. "Hold on, let's all just calm down." Her eyes scanned Nathan's face. It wasn't the face of a guilty man. There was no fear, no begging, just quiet resolve. She turned to Lauren. "You're sure the wallet was under his mattress?" "Security found it." "That's what matters," Lauren said too quickly. Eliza walked into the cottage, scanned the small room with fresh eyes. The mattress had clearly been disturbed. Sloppily, unlike Nathan, who folded his clothes and lined up his shoes like a soldier. She turned back. "Cassidy, when did you last see the wallet?" Cassidy blinked. "Why?" "Because this feels too neat," Eliza replied. Cassidy glanced at Lauren nervously. Nathan raised a hand. "Let them talk," he said quietly. Then, to Eliza, "If I may ask one thing, don't defend me, just watch." He picked up a duffel bag from the corner, the same one he arrived with weeks ago. From it, he pulled a slim black folder. Inside were documents. Real ones, passports, certificates, photos, evidence of travel, business ventures, his life. He handed it to Eliza. "I was never here to steal. I was here to understand." Her hands trembled as she opened it. "I'm not who you think I am," he said gently. "But I also didn't lie to you. Not the part. That mattered." Outside, the wind picked up. A storm was coming, and Nathan had just changed the game. Eliza sat in her father's old study, the folder Nathan gave her spread across the antique oak desk. Every document was authenticated, every timestamp checked out. The photos showed him in conferences across Europe, volunteering in Southeast Asia, standing beside men whose names carried real weight in global business circles. Nathan Carter, heir to the Carter Foundation. Her breath caught. He wasn't just someone. He was the someone her family always wanted her to marry, on paper. Wealthy, educated, powerful. Except now, the name didn't matter. The man she had fallen for had worn calluses on his hands and eaten at the servant table. And yet, it had all started with a lie. Her mind flashed back to the night he bandaged her hand. The way he had let her yell, let her doubt him without flinching. He hadn't once tried to defend himself. Until now. A knock. It was Mateo, one of the longtime groundskeepers. "Miss Eliza," he said quietly. "I saw Cassidy the night before the wallet incident. She was outside the cottage. I didn't think anything of it until now." Eliza's lips tightened. "Why didn't you come forward?" He looked down. "Because Miss Lauren told us all your fiancé was back, that you needed stability." She leaned back in the chair, the weight of realization crashing over her. Cassidy, Lauren, together? Was this just about money? Or something deeper? She walked out to the garden where Nathan was quietly sanding a broken bench. Alone. He turned as she approached, but didn't speak. "I owe you an apology," Eliza began. "You don't owe me anything," he replied. "I came here looking for the truth. I found you." She paused, then added, "You said you didn't lie about the part that mattered." "What did you mean?" He looked her in the eyes. "That the man who fell in love with you didn't care if you were rich or poor. And I was hoping maybe I could find someone who'd feel the same. Eliza's voice softened. You think I care about your money? Nathan shrugged. You didn't, but others did, enough to orchestrate a setup to drive me out. Eliza narrowed her eyes. You're saying Lauren and Cassidy? I'm saying you already know the answer. He interrupted gently. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. A video link. The message read, You should see what they say when you're not around. Eliza clicked. Cassidy's voice, laughing. And when he's gone, we'll get Eliza back in line. Lauren added, She's just like her mother. Too soft. But once she marries Thomas, it won't matter. Eliza's hands trembled. Nathan stepped forward instinctively, but she raised a hand. No, she whispered. Let me burn this myself. The silk gloves were off, and the fight had just begun. The next morning, Eliza requested a family breakfast in the garden room, a rare event reserved only for birthdays or high-stakes announcements. The tension in the air crackled as Lauren walked in, her pearls perfectly aligned, followed by Cassidy with her usual smirk. Thomas arrived last, adjusting his Rolex like it was armor. They were all there, except Nathan. Eliza stood at the head of the table, in the same spot her mother once occupied before illness and betrayal swallowed her voice. Before we eat, she said calmly, I have something to share. Cassidy rolled her eyes. Is this about the help again? That handyman obsession has gone on long enough. Lauren cut in. Eliza, you're emotional. Let's sit. I'm not emotional, Eliza snapped. I'm awake. She tapped her phone. The video played on. The flat screen behind her. Cassidy's voice rang out clearly. Once he's gone, we'll get Eliza back in line. Lauren's face drained of color. Thomas stiffened. I trusted you both, Eliza said coldly. You manipulated my life, my choices, my engagement. For what? So I'd marry someone easier to control? Lauren tried to recover. We did it to protect you. That man, he's not who he says he is. You're right, Eliza interrupted. He's not a handyman. At that exact moment, Nathan entered, no longer in dusty boots and a linen shirt, but in a tailored navy blue suit that fit him like a second skin. His stride was calm, self-assured, the air around him shifting as the Carter legacy returned to its rightful weight. Lauren blinked. Nathan? Joel Nathaniel Carter, he corrected, offering a small nod. Heir to Carter International, and very disappointed in the people you chose to surround Eliza with. Thomas's chair scraped loudly as he stood. Why the deception? Nathan looked at Eliza. I didn't trust your family to love me for me. Turns out, I was right. Silence. I came here looking for truth. Eliza gave me that, even when it hurt, even when I didn't deserve it. Cassidy opened her mouth to retaliate, but Eliza cut her off. You're done. Pack your things and leave the estate by noon. You too, Lauren. The trust fund my mother left me? I just unfroze it. I don't need you managing anything anymore. Thomas tried to speak, but Eliza's tone hardened. And you, Father. You were willing to trade me for business leverage. We're not done. But we're not allies anymore. Lauren gasped. You'll regret this. No, Eliza said, stepping beside Nathan. What I regret is not seeing it sooner. And just like that, the power shifted. Not through inheritance, but through truth. The estate felt different now. The chill that once lingered in the corridors, born from whispered betrayal and calculating stares, had been replaced by something warmer, almost sacred. With Lauren and Cassidy gone, the silence wasn't hollow, it was peaceful. Nathan stood at the edge of the rose garden, freshly trimmed and blooming again. He had changed out of his corporate armor and into something softer. A faded shirt, sleeves rolled, hands still dusted with soil from helping the groundskeeper. Eliza approached, barefoot on the dewy grass, her eyes tracing the back of the man who had shaken her entire world, and then steadied it. I'm not sure whether I should hug you or slap you, she said softly. Nathan turned, lips tugging into a wry smile. I'd say that's fair. There was a long pause between them, not awkward, but heavy with everything. They hadn't said yet. You let me believe you were someone else, Eliza finally said, voice steady. And I loved you as that man. I needed to know you could, he replied, because I've seen what power does to people. I didn't want to be another trophy. I needed you to love the version of me who fixes broken things, not just the one who signs million-dollar contracts. And now that I know, she asked. I'll never lie to you again, Nathan promised. But I won't apologize for falling in love with you the only way I knew how, raw, stripped of title, unsure of everything except you. Eliza felt her heart thud once, hard and certain. She stepped closer. You were right, you know, about my family, about the masks they wear, but what you missed? She reached up to touch his chest. Was that I was wearing one too? Nathan's brow furrowed. For so long I tried to be the perfect daughter, the perfect bride, fitting into a life I didn't choose. Until you showed up, in paint-splattered jeans and two honest eyes, and made me feel seen. He took her hand gently. So what now? We rebuild, she whispered. Not the estate, not reputations, us. He kissed her then, not like a prince reclaiming a throne, but like a man anchoring himself to the only truth that mattered. Later that evening, the staff found them sitting on the greenhouse steps, fingers intertwined, laughing quietly as the sun dipped below the hills. The Carter legacy had weathered scandal, lies, and betrayal, but from its ruins something real had taken root. And this time, it wasn't built on money, but on love. 3 months later, the Carter estate was unrecognizable. Gone were the velvet ropes and exclusive guest lists. In their place were open gates, laughter from local school children on weekend field trips, and warm meals served in what used to be the ballroom. Nathan had turned the estate into the Carter Foundation for Rural Education. It was Eliza's idea. If this house has to carry a legacy, she had said, let it be one that feeds futures, not egos. On the front lawn stood a small wooden plaque, built by ambition, reborn through love. Nathan watched the dedication ceremony from the side, hands in his pockets, tie slightly crooked, just as Eliza liked it. He wasn't CEO Nathan Carter here. He was just Nathan, the man who once painted fences, the man who finally believed he could be loved for himself. Eliza stepped onto the stage, now a community garden amphitheater. The sun kissed her shoulders as she adjusted the mic. I used to believe love came with conditions, she began. Status, perfection, obedience. But I was wrong. She glanced at Nathan in the crowd, and their eyes locked. Love isn't about roles we're handed or names we carry. It's about who we choose to be when no one is watching, and who still chooses to stand beside us after the truth comes out. The crowd applauded, but Nathan only saw her. The girl who once cried in silence now spoke like a leader. After the ceremony, he took her hand and led her quietly into the greenhouse, where their reconciliation had begun. I have one more vow, he said, voice low, pulling out a velvet box. Eliza blinked. Didn't we agree no more surprises? This one's earned, he smiled, opening it to reveal a simple gold ring. Inside was engraved, For the girl who loved the man beneath the mask. She gasped, tears springing to her eyes. Nathan, marry me again, he said. No disguise, no secrets, just you and me. She nodded, throwing her arms around his neck. Yes. 1,000 times yes. They married the following weekend in the garden, barefoot, surrounded by children, neighbors, and even a few former skeptics who had once whispered about them in dark hallways. The Carter name still meant something in society, but now it meant something better. Not old money, but new hope. Dear viewers, what lessons did you take away from this dramatic tale? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.